Hello. Hi guys. I hope all of you are doing well. So I welcome you all to yet another video in the Databricks playlist, and in this particular playlist we are going to see the difference between select function and collect function. So talking about select function, we have already seen what select function is and how we can use select function to do some kind of selection or transformation on our data frame. In this video, we are also going to see the difference between select and collect. So in the previous few videos, we have talked about multiple concepts of Spark right from the scratch, like how we can use select function, how we can use with column function, with column renamed function to get a column renamed. We have also talked about the advanced topics like how we can do a group by operation, how we can do a join operation, how we can create our own UDFs, how we can handle null values. So if you are not aware about these topics, I would highly recommend to watch these videos so that you can get a better understanding of Spark. So let's get started with this video and let's get straight into our system. So the very first thing that I will do is that I will create a markdown cell where I will write select versus collect. Okay. And I will run this. And let me create one more markdown cell where I will be creating a nodes for you guys. Okay. So the very first function, that is the select function, we have already talked about it in the previous video, that we can use select to select the required column for from our data frame. Let's suppose we have n number of columns in our data frame and we only require a few out of them. So we can do what? df.select. We can pass those column names in my select function, and only those functions will be available for the as an output to me, right? As well as we can also use select function to add new columns. We have also seen this particular thing, to add new columns or to rename a new column. Like to rename a column also we can use select function. So all these things we have seen in our previous videos, right? So select function is what it is, like usually done on a column column level operation, right? Operation, and majorly it's used for transformation purpose, right? So if I talk about select operation, okay, so it does not bring data to the driver. So what this particular thing means is, so if I talk about the Spark architecture, right? So in the Spark architecture, let me just take my pen. Okay. So what exactly Spark architecture is, that this will be my driver node or my master node, right? Both of them are the very same thing. And from this driver node, we will have our worker nodes connected, right? We will have our worker nodes connected, and the data will persist in these worker nodes. The data will persist in these worker nodes, right? So whenever we call the collect function, whenever we will call collect function, so what will happen is that these worker nodes will send these data that are present on them to the driver in a form of Python list. Okay, so the data that will be sent in a form of a Python list and not in a form of a data frame. Okay, so this is what the driver is and what exactly a collect function does. I have just shown you on a basic level. I'll also show you this particular thing practically also. Okay, then what select does is it modifies the data frame, okay, by selecting or transforming columns. Okay, so either we can use to select a column, or even for the transformation purpose also we can use the select function. Then comes the collect function. So collect is basically an action function, that returns data to the driver. Okay, as I have already told you. Then if I talk about it, so it does what? Brings the entire data frame. Entire data frame means all rows, all rows and all columns. Okay, so there is nothing to select in this particular case to the driver node. Okay, as what? As a Python list, as I have already told you. Cool. Now to use collect function in like to use a collect function, or I would say while using a collect function, okay, you need to keep one important thing in your mind, and that is, if my data set is very huge, in that particular case, if you are running this collect function, you may get an OOM, that is out of memory error. So why out of memory error is because, let's suppose my driver node is of 16 GB. Okay, so we may only have something about 8 to 7 GB of memory that will be available for the data storage part, and my file is, let's suppose, of 50 GB, right? Like maybe 50 GB or maybe even 15 GB in that particular case, right? If my whole data set is of 15 GB, so I will not be able to load the entire data frame on the driver node, and in that particular case my driver node will go down, and subsequently my whole cluster will also go down. So you need to keep this particular thing in mind while running the collect function. So it does what? It can cause OOM, that is out of memory error. Okay, if used on a large data set. Okay, so while running the collect function, you need to keep this particular thing in mind. It's very important. Okay, done. So this is like I have written this particular thing so that you guys can just go through this notes and you can get your concepts cleared. Now what I will do is that I will create a dummy data frame. So for creating a dummy data frame, what I will do is that from PySpark .sql functions, I will import. Okay, I will import something called as column. Then I will import expr, and then expr, and I will import rand. Okay, so till now what we have been doing is that we have been creating the data frame using row, right? We have been manually writing the values in our data frame, but this time we will use a kind of function for creating the data frame. So let's see how we will do that. Okay, so I will do what? In data, I will be using, like, I will be having a column as, let's say, I. Okay, and then I will use a f string, and I can do something as val underscore, and I can take as, let's say, I mod 20, and I can close this string. Then what I can do is that I can take a second string as, let's say, I mod 5. Okay, and then I can take something as, let's say, float column, that will be equals to I mod, let's say, 1.5, not mod, I would say I into 1.5. Okay, and this will be for what? For I in range of 1 to 1001. So why 1001 is because it will run from 1 to 1000. It skips the last value. I guess you guys are aware about this fact. Okay, and now what I will do is that df underscore dummy will be equals to spark dot create data frame. Okay, and then I can pass my data, and here I will pass the columns. So my first column will be ID, and my second column will be, let's suppose I name it user ID. Okay, third column can be, let's say, rating, and fourth column can be, let's say, as value. Okay, and then I will do what? I will display df underscore dummy. Okay, and I will run this. So till now what we have been doing is that we have been manually adding every value to the rows. But now what I have done is that I have iterated from value of 1 till 1001. So it will iterate from basically 1 from 1 to 1000. The very first column that will be created will be the value of this I. So it will be 1, 2, 3, 4 and like that. Then we will have value underscore I mod 20. So modulus means if we are dividing that particular number with something, right? If it will be divided by 20, so whatever the remainder will come, so that will be the output of the modulus. Okay. So let's suppose if I am doing 5 mod 2. Okay. If I am doing 5 mod 2, not 2, I would say. Let's say if I am doing 7 mod 2. Okay. Why I am doing 5 mod, not doing 5 mod 2, I will let you know. So 7 will be divided by 2. So that is equivalent to 3, right? So 3 will not be the output. So if I divide 7 by 2, right? If I divide 7 by 2, right? So my quotient will be 3, right? This number will be 6 and the output or the remainder will be 1, right? So here the output of modulus is always the remainder. It's not the quotient. Okay, it's always the remainder. So here my output will be what? My output will be 1 if I do 7 mod 2. Okay. So you can see my output is 1. So this is what modulus is. I hope you guys are understanding. Okay. So here our data frame has been created. So you can see we have an ID from 1 to 1000 we will have. Then we will have user value underscore 1, something as user ID. So value underscore 1, value underscore 2, it will repeat till 20 and then it will move forward. Okay. Then we have ratings and then we have a value column. Cool. So this is how. So this is just a synthetic data frame. It does not make too much of sense, but just because we required some large data frame, right? So we have created this data frame synthetically. Okay. What I can also do is that, let's say I want to add some random value to this particular data frame. So I will do what? Df underscore dummy is equals to df underscore dummy dot with column I can use, right? And then what I can do is that I can name a column, let's say, as random value. And then what I can do random into 100. Okay. And then I can also display my df underscore dummy. Cool. So let me run this. So now you will see another column with rand underscore value has been added to the data frame, and we have some. So this rand function will give us some kind of random values, and then it will be multiplied by 100 to get the output of the column. Okay. Now let's get started and let's understand about the, first of all, select function. So in select, what we usually do is, let's say df underscore select, it can be equal to what? Df underscore dummy, right? Dot select, and let's say if I want to select user underscore ID, right? And I want to select rating. That's it. Only these two columns are required. Okay. And then I can do what? Display df underscore select. That's it. And I can run this cell now. So you will see the two columns that I have mentioned in my select function, that is user underscore ID and rating, is now in the output of the, like I would say, the data frame that I wanted to enter the output to, that is df underscore select. Okay. Now if I want to do some kind of transformation also, so I can do it something like this. Okay. I can do it something like this, df underscore select. It can be equals to, let's say, df underscore dummy. Okay. And I want to choose what? Sorry, df underscore dummy dot select. Right. And I want to choose what? Let's say I want to choose ID column. Right. I want to choose user underscore ID column. Okay. And then what I want to do is that I want to multiply the value column with 2. So how I can do it? I will do it something like this. Call of value column will be equals to into 2. Okay. And let's say I want, now I can even give the column name to this. So I will put it in a bracket and then dot alias, and I can give the alias, let's say, value underscore into 2. Okay, not plus, okay, into 2, something like this. Again, let's say I want to add some kind of value, let's say rating plus 1. Okay, so I will do what? expr rating plus 1, and again I can give an alias to it. Alias will be rating underscore, let's say, plus 1, something like this. Okay, that's it. And now what I will do is I will display my df underscore select, df underscore select, and that's it. So now you can see, with the help of select function, we have also modified our column, or maybe I won't say I have modified our column. We have added a new column, that is value 2x and rating plus 1. Right? These columns did not exist in our base data frame, that was df underscore dummy data frame. Right? So we can use, as already mentioned here in the notes, that we can use select operation. It modifies the data frame by selecting. So similar to this, that we have only selected, we have not modified or we have not added any column, as well as we can also do some kind of transformation on the columns. Right? This is what a select function is. Now let's understand about collect. Okay. So collect, as we are already aware about, that it will return a list of values. So let's say I am creating a variable here as collected data, and then what I will do is that df underscore dummy dot collect. Here we cannot do any kind of selection on the column level. Okay, on the row level also it is not available in the collect function, but we can do it later on. I will show you how in this video itself. Okay, so like we can use this collect function, and I will display what? I will display collected underscore data. Okay. So it will take a few seconds to run. So here you can see the collected data is something like this. So because we have used the display function, you guys are getting this particular thing in the form of a data frame. If we do print here, right? Collected underscore data. If I print the variable, so you will see a list of values. Okay, so here you can very clearly see that every row, okay, you can see here that it is a list, right? And inside the lists we are having the rows individually. So this is my first row having the values, right? This is my second row having the values, third row, and so on, right? So we have got a list of values. And even if I scroll at the very bottom, if I scroll at the bottom, so you must see ID as 1000, right? This is my last row of the data set, and here we are getting the list closed. Okay, so this is the output that we usually get. So now this data frame has been pushed to the driver node. Okay, this is not existing in the worker node. This data has been pushed to the driver node of the Spark architecture. Okay, now we have also something called as show. So usually we use display function, right? You will very well understand why once I use the show function. So let's say if I am doing df underscore dummy dot show, okay, not in brackets, dot show, right? And if I run this cell, okay, so you will see the output in this format, okay, in the format in which we usually get when we are using or dealing with pandas, right? So in pandas, if we are trying to print our data frame, so we usually get the output in this format. Okay, so show and display both are an action function. We can use both of them to trigger the transformations, right? But the output wise, or I would say the user experience wise, display function is much more better than show function. And for the very same reason, we always use display function in my in these videos, right? And even while I'm working also, I'm very well I would say comfortable by using display function itself. Okay, now display function also has something else, that how many number of rows if we want to select in the output. So let's say if I'm doing df underscore dummy show 5, so it will only show the top 5 rows of our data frame. Okay, so only showing top 5 rows. If I want to, so by default it shows 20 rows. If I want more, okay, so I can get more also. If I'm writing df underscore dummy dot show, let's say if I want 50 rows, okay, so I can even get top 50 rows in my output. Okay, so I'm only getting top 50 rows as the output. Cool. Then we have also something as take. Okay, so take is now I would say something similar to our collect function. So let's say I'm writing here as take data, and I'm writing df underscore dummy dot take, okay, and I want top 10 rows, and if I print my take underscore data, okay, so it will give again the list of rows as the output. Okay, so we are getting list of rows as the output of like the top 10 rows of our data frame. Okay, now as I told you that in collect function we don't have an option to select, right? If I want some particular column or only till a certain number of rows, right? But it is available with the help of other functions. So if we combine two functions, that is if we combine limit plus collect function, so it's possible. Okay, so it's possible in this particular way. So I can do what? Let's say df underscore limit underscore collect, it will be equals to, let's say df underscore dummy, right, dot limit, let's say it limited to 20, and I can then use my collect function. Okay, and then I can print df underscore limit underscore collect. Okay. So now what we have done is that from my df underscore dummy data frame, I have limited the selection of rows till 20 rows, and then I am selecting though I am sending those 20 rows to the driver node. So now you will see we will only have the top 20 rows selected here in the not selected, I would say collected in the driver node. Okay, so we only got the top 20 rows. Cool. Now we can also do one more thing, that is we can use aggregation function plus collect function. Okay, so how we can do is that let's say agg underscore df will be equals to df underscore dummy, okay, dot group by. Okay, cool. I want to group by on user id. Okay, then I can use dot agg, and inside this agg what I will do, I will pass a list that from the value column, okay, I want the average, okay, and of rating column, let's say I want the count. Okay, of rating column I want count. That's it. And I can do what, I can also use something like this agg.collect, or I can do the collect function right here also. Okay, here it will not be a comma, it will be a colon. Okay, and then what I can do, I can maybe display agg underscore df, and I can also do what, I can print agg underscore df, so that you guys can differentiate in both of them. Okay, so if I talk about the display, so you all guys already know that in display we will get the data in the form of a data frame, right? And we have, okay, why is it, okay, and we have done what, we have grouped by on the user id, we have found the average of the value of all the user, right, of all the user id I would say, and the count of rating of all the user IDs. Okay, so for user ID 1, average value is this, count of rating is this. For user ID 2, average value is this, count of rating is this, and things like that. Similarly, if we have printed the agg underscore df, we have got the output in this format, which is the by default output. Okay, so this will be the default output that will be returned to the driver. This will not be the default output. Okay, it's only showing us why, because we are using the display function. But by default, the output that will be provided to the driver will be this output, a list of Python. Okay, so I hope you learned something new in this particular video, and you guys have understood the basic difference between select function and collect function. Also, you have learned about take function and show function, and why we usually use display instead of show as the action function. So I hope you learned something new in this particular video. I will see you in the next video. Till then, keep learning and keep growing. Bye bye.